The following accounts have been submitted by security guard subscribers. These experiences are claimed to describe true events. I ask you to listen in good faith and decide for yourself what to believe. I am a security officer in North Florida. My job requires me to bounce between multiple properties throughout the night. Most of my properties are apartment complexes. We also respond to calls from residents to come and handle issues that may not require the police. Around the start of the year, I was called to provide assistance to another officer for a situation he was handling. As I arrived on scene, I saw the officer, whose name was Jeff, standing in the parking lot with a resident of one of the apartments. Jeff explained to me that she had flagged him down, stating that someone was in her house. She told us that she lived alone, and when she left, all of the lights in her house were off. From the parking lot, I could clearly see through her window that the lights were on. The lady showed us on her phone that she had a motion-activated security camera inside her house that recorded brief videos whenever it caught movement. She then showed us the two most recent videos. The first was her leaving the house, where the lights were clearly off. The second and most recent of the two was a recording of the front door. There was nothing visible moving in the video. The lights were, however, on. As this second video played, just moments after the recording started, the video went black from top to bottom, as if a person had put their hand down over the lens. Then the video went from black to white. After she had showed us this, I looked up at her apartment's window. I saw a very clear silhouette of a person in her room. The figure turned and moved away. To be sure I wasn't seeing things, I asked Jeff if he had seen it too. He said he had definitely seen the person. I shined my flashlight into the window to see if there was any object that could be casting such a shadow, but there was nothing in front of the window. Certain that there was someone in the apartment, I radioed my superior. I told him what we had seen, and he immediately told our dispatcher to send law enforcement. Whilst awaiting the police, I saw the shadow 3 more times. However, after I'd shined my flashlight, the movement changed. It was no longer the image of someone standing in front of the window, but rather someone ducked behind it and peeking over the windowsill, almost as if whoever was inside was checking to see if we were still there. Jeff also saw it all 3 other times. When the police finally arrived, they had to get the residents' keys to enter the unit, as all of the doors were still locked. They spent about 2 minutes inside, searching before telling us the house was empty. They promptly left the area, leaving myself, Officer Jeff, and the residents still in the parking lot. I was not convinced the house was empty, as the police had said. After all, we had all seen the figure. Believing that there was a person inside, hiding somewhere, I escorted the resident to her home. Yet, there really was no one inside. She told me that nothing inside looked out of place. However, when she walked over to her kitchen table, to where she had placed her security camera, there was something wrong. The camera was face down, completely wrapped in a white hand towel. My thoughts raced back to the second video she had showed us that night, of the camera lens being covered. I could not think of an explanation as to how this had happened. Until that point, the thought of this being a paranormal experience had not even crossed my mind, but at that moment, I was absolutely convinced. Later, my boss would go on to tell me that he had had similar experiences, and that he believed that the resident knew there was an entity in her home, and wanted someone else to experience it as well, so she would know she wasn't crazy. She left the unit at the same time I did that night, and every time I've been back to that complex since, her car is always gone. I can only imagine that once she got the confirmation she was looking for, she moved out quickly. I am a private night security patrolman. I am an atheist, but I am sensitive towards living creatures and plants. Whenever there are snakes or trapped animals at guard sites, my co-workers call on me to remove them. I have never been bitten, and sometimes I feel things as though I am sensitive to the creatures. I have never seen anything strange with my own eyes though, just with my mind. That is, until now. There is a mall plaza which I check. It was there that I observed a strange anomaly. This place has a rough history, and is one place I am always at high alert due to its proximity to the Bay Area Rapid Transport Station, which at night is full of meth heads who try to sleep on the nearby property after the BART cops try to clear them off. Occasionally I get runaways who I turn into the police. On that night I entered the property as usual. I scanned my patrol point and drove to the areas where the hobos sleep and or get high. I felt there were no humans or animals, save for one woman, a new hobo on my beat. I came over and woke her up and talked to her, asking my typical questions, filling in an FI card. What is your name? Your age? Are you okay enough to walk? Do you need me to call someone for you? I noticed she had stopped answering and was looking behind me. I turned to see there was a child in a hoodie, hood drawn, staring at us from the other side of the property. I did not feel a human presence there. Nothing, just cold air. The woman asked if I could see him too. I said yes and asked her if she knew him. Her answer was strange, and to be honest, it disturbed me. She said yes, she knew him. He has followed me since I was a kid. I told her to shut up and sit there, thinking she was playing some game with my mind. Leaving her there, I went into my car and focused my dash camera towards the boy. My whole body fought against me approaching, but I did it anyway. As I got closer, the boy ran fast and I gave chase, yelling at him to stop. Now I'm training to become a police officer and can run 1.5 miles in 8 minutes 30 seconds. I'm athletic, but that boy ran fast. Getting ahead of me, he disappeared into an alleyway. There were no doors, no sewer entrances, and the walls were made of a smoothed plaster and bricks. No way out. There was no exit save the entrance, but he was gone all the same. After checking for him, I went back to the woman, and she was gone too. Later, when I reviewed my dash cam, there was nothing. Only the woman showed up, and me heading towards nothing. My boss laughed at me when I told him and said I was just seeing things. He also said that when he was a cop, he saw things at night like that too and told me to ignore it, saying they won't bother me. He then deleted the video and locked the FI card away. I don't know how to explain what happened that night. However, ever since, I have never seen hobos use that area at night again. A few weeks later, I was called to a guard site where an alarm went off. The guard had called me thinking there was an animal inside. We walked side by side throughout the abandoned factory site, checking doors, noticing they were all locked. I began doing animal calls to draw the creature out, telling the other guard to wait outside. I thought I felt the presence of a lone female bat, probably looking for food or for a shortcut to the nearby roost. I sat down and waited, humming to it. Usually trapped animals will leave if you give them a way out. So I opened a door nearest to the bat roost so it could escape and head home to fertile hunting grounds. However, it would not leave. Instead, I felt its energy change. I jumped up from where I was sitting and opened my eyes. In front of me, there was a dark, humanoid shadow figure staring at me. It avoided my flashlight, not letting me see it clearly. I was frozen. Fear boiled in my body and my fight instinct clicked. It was then that it charged me. The figure ran at me and I grabbed its shoulders, trying to wrestle it to the ground, but it was so cold that it hurt my hands. It took me down, but I managed to kick it off. It exited towards the bat roost, causing a large female bat and several males to come out, screaming with teeth bared in defense of their home. I followed it out to the train dock, the bats calming down after it was gone. When I returned to the other guard, he said that he had seen the shadow thing run through the fence and down the tracks. He thought it was a lesser cat, since we sometimes get cougars there. I wasn't so sure. Either way, it was gone, for now. The next night I came back again, this time because of a complaint of a dead animal smell. I found the bats all dead, ripped to shreds, but not eaten. I chose not to tell my boss or anyone what I thought. I knew this was no nighttime predator. They would not do that. Animals do not do that. We had the mess cleaned up, but every night after when I went there, I would feel a dark presence staring at me. It never follows, only stares. My co-workers don't like the sight. It is cold, dark, damp, and sometimes it smells of corpses. Some people who used to work there have told me that there are ghosts there at night. When I worked there that night, I knew there were no animals inside, as when there are, they are usually very afraid, and as soon as a door is opened, will run out. Personally, I don't believe anything unexplained is paranormal. It is just another part of nature that we don't understand yet. It is normal. As for my own ability to connect with people, animals, and plants, I attribute it to having a disciplined mind. When I was a teenager, I used to get seizures until I disciplined my mind. That said, I have never seen or come into contact with these things like this before. Whatever I encountered those nights were strange creatures so strange that even animals and plants shy away from them. I honestly believe that they are not human, or at least not fully human. The second encounter concerns me the most. It was able to change its energy, its ID. To me it felt like a bat, but it was obviously not. It was something darker than even the night. While studying for a master's degree at Northumbria University, I did some work as a security guard in order to pay for the fees. Being a security guard in the UK requires you obtain the necessary Security Industry Authority or SIA qualifications, which then enables you to work for security companies, many of which require that you work day or night. It was at night time that I experienced and heard others experience paranormal events. I once worked for a housing association that provided housing for kids between the ages of 16 and 25 who had nowhere else to go. This involved working during the night to make sure they were all safe and sound. The patrol typically involved me walking from the office along the corridors containing the flats belonging to the kids. One night, as I approached the main office, I saw an apparition. The apparition appeared to me as the face of a baby. Its body was just a blur. It appeared to be around 5 foot 8 inches in height, though the odd thing about it was that it appeared to me as if it were a 2D cutout. If you can imagine someone holding a cutout of someone's face, this is exactly as it appeared to me. It only showed itself for a split second before the whole thing vanished towards the lounge area of the building where the kids would hang out in their spare time. Soon after this, I saw another ghostly apparition. This time, it looked like a mist walked straight through the main entrance. We had a CCTV system in the main office with cameras that fed from the children's corridors, and it was through this camera system that I saw it. I went over the CCTV DVR and rewound the footage just to make sure I wasn't seeing things, but sure enough, there was what appeared to be a ghostly form on the monitor. As guards don't have access to the actual video files on the security DVR systems, I recorded the footage using my mobile phone. I still have a copy of it. Surprised by what I had seen, I, from the start, tried to think rationally to explain what it was. Perhaps it was the headlights of a nearby car. However, upon reviewing the footage, I could see that if it were the headlights of a vehicle, then it would have emitted light on the far wall. It didn't. The next morning, I told the staff who work with the kids to find jobs and so on during the daytime what I thought I had seen, and showed them the footage. Some were doubtful, others were more open-minded. One of the staff members told me a story about how the very building we were in was built upon an old mining pit where accidents would have taken place on a regular basis. Another temporary staff member seemed incredibly scared by it. She never returned to work and was transferred to another branch, and I believe my experience and the video were the reasons why. I, however, could not get away from it so easily. This was not the last paranormal experience I would have. On one occasion in the same building, when I was conducting a routine patrol, I heard a very clear noise in my right ear whilst walking down the stairs. It was a male, as it was deep, and sounded like someone exhaling very loudly in my ear. There was no one there. I just ignored it and nothing else happened. Another strange instance involved the site's intercom system. Next to the office was a spare room where emergency clients would be kept whilst their housing applications were being processed. But on this particular night, there was no client in that room. I was sitting at the desk when I heard the intercom phone in the aforementioned emergency room ring. The issue was that there was only one phone in the head office which had access to all the other phones in the building. Being in the office, I knew full well that no one else was in the office calling the room next door. It was right in front of me after all. It rang and stopped. Around 2 minutes later, it started to ring again. I went towards the wall that separates the two rooms and shouted out, "Will you please stop that?" It stopped, and it never happened again. With all that I had experienced at the site, it was not surprising when I learned that others had also had strange things happen to them there. Across the road from us there was a business centre for entrepreneurs, and one night their alarm systems were sounding off. Because I wasn't contracted to them, I thought nothing of it. However, the next day, one of the clients I was looking after in the building I was in came down to the office to see me in the evening. He appeared confused about something. I asked the client what he wanted, and he replied by saying that a strange thing had occurred the previous day. Bearing in mind that I had never told any of the clients about my paranormal experiences, he told me that after returning back during the day, he found his bathroom door locked from the inside. I asked him whether it was jammed, or could it have been caused by banging it, but he was an intelligent lad and was adamant that the lock used couldn't have been locked by itself from the outside. It must have been locked from the inside. Suspecting he was telling lies, I asked him, "Well, how did you get back inside then?" He said that he had used his penknife to get back in, which took him about an hour or so. I was intrigued by it, but then he added that it was strange because it was later that night that all the alarms were sounding from the building opposite. To my knowledge, this had never happened before or since. I even asked him whether he had known any of the buildings across from us to have their alarms sounding, to which he replied no. Of course, I cannot say whether or not there was a connection, but it was certainly a strange coincidence. During my shifts, part of my job would be to make numerous check calls to other branches throughout the night. Check calls are pre-arranged calls made to other workers so as to ensure that they are safe and sound. This would happen every 2 hours, and if the call on the other end wasn't answered, then I'd have to contact the police, who would send a unit to investigate. Anyway, during one of these calls, I talked to one of the regulars who was called Derek. During the check calls, we would often make chit-chat about how we were getting on and how things were, and so eventually I built up a picture of Derek. Derek was in his late 60s and was close to retirement. In fact, he was due to retire in just a few months' time. During one particular conversation, having experienced recent paranormal events myself, I asked him if he had experienced any. He told me that there were far too many to mention, though one in particular stuck in his mind. Derek explained that he had worked in security for most of his life, and that when he was in his 20s, he worked for a company with state-of-the-art technologies working for the UK government. This was a warehouse that stored classified items like weaponry and barrels. One night, he glanced down on the CCTV and saw the figure of a man leaning against one of these barrels. Derek couldn't believe his eyes and looked harder towards the monitor to make sure he wasn't seeing things. However, sure enough, there was a man dressed in what he claims was 1920s style clothing, just leaning against a barrel. As I said, the company had state-of-the-art technologies for the time and was working to secure a warehouse which contained classified items. This meant that security levels were very high. The floors were pressure sensitive, meaning that should anyone have stepped on the floor of the warehouse, the alarms would be raised. This unknown person leaning against one of the barrels didn't sound the alarm, however. Derek projected to me how confused he was at the time. He then went on to tell me that he decided to call the police to the premises. When the police arrived, Derek explained the situation to them, even rewinding the CCTV footage in front of the police. They, like Derek, could see a man leaning on a barrel, as clear as any other person alive. Both the police officers and Derek were flabbergasted. He then told me that they conducted a thorough search inside and out of the warehouse. They found nobody there, and no sign of forced entry. When I asked him whether he was absolutely sure he had seen a person there, he could not have been any clearer. By the way he explained it, he was utterly convinced, as were the two police officers who arrived later that night. A man had appeared in the warehouse without activating the alarms. Years later, I can say that I too am no stranger to paranormal experiences. Thank you for listening, and thank you to the people who have so kindly and courageously allowed me to share their experiences. If you enjoyed this and haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe for more, and to receive notifications of new videos, make sure you have clicked the bell icon next to my subscription box. Thank you. Until next time.